Hi everybody, welcome to Christian Homestead. My name is Jared. I was just looking at Newsroom and I saw this article. It's titled Historic Church Growth, a preview of the April 2026 World Report. And I'm sure a lot of you have read this already, but unless you're doing what I'm doing with numbers and data and my spreadsheets and you're trying to analyze things, there's a couple key details in this that I think are really exciting that you may have missed. There's one number in particular that really gets me excited, that leads me to believe that the church is launching into new territory. And we almost got there before, but now it looks like it's happening. So let me read some of my highlights. It says, the World Report of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will be released this Wednesday, April 1st, 2026, which is today. You can watch it on YouTube, on the church newsroom YouTube channel. And then here's these other details if you want to watch it elsewhere. We're going to scroll down. Elder Quentin L. Cook of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles discussed the recent surge in converts. Now, this is something that we've talked about a number of times. It appears that there's a phenomenon right now in new converts. In fact, we're going to read a couple of my favorite quotes that have to do with this. But continuing, discussed the recent surge in converts to the church during his most recent General Conference address in October 2025. Quote, in the last 36 months, nearly 900,000 converts have joined the church. These converts constitute approximately 5% of the total church membership, he shared. In the first 6 months of this year, conversions have risen by more than 20% over the previous year in Europe, Africa, Asia, the Pacific, and Latin America. In North America, we've seen a 17% increase. So just a little bit less than those other areas, but all across the board, all across the world, about 20%. So that's pretty incredible, but let's look at this 900,000 converts. So I have this spreadsheet called Timeline Missionary Work. And it looks a lot different from the last time that we looked at it because I've added a bunch more data from the church's statistical reports. We're going to look at a new column. Let me zoom in here. Column G for converts baptized. So I remember a couple videos where it was kind of unclear exactly how many new converts we had. Because if you're just looking at the raw number of church membership year by year, you can't really differentiate between the new children of record, children who have been born and then later been baptized, and then converts baptized. So now I have these two columns that differentiate the two. And let's look at 900,000. Okay. So let's go back in time a little bit and let's see how out of the ordinary that is. We're not going to look at the pandemic years because obviously those numbers were low, but let's just look at the years leading up to the pandemic. So let's do 2017 to 2019. And if I highlight these cells and you look down at the bottom right, it'll automatically sum up those numbers. And for those 3 years, it was 716. So 716,000 compared to 900,000 for the last 3 years. So that's a difference of about 200,000. But let's go back in time a little bit more. And we'll find some bigger years. So probably the most recent big years that we've seen would be 2012 until 2014. You can see here, this one's almost 300,000. This is almost 300,000. This is 272. So let's add those up. And that only gets us to 852. So it's closer to 900,000, but it's still short. So already you can see that in recent memory, at least, 900,000 relative to these other years is big. It's big. Let's go back further. I had to eventually tell myself to stop because I just wanted to fill out all these numbers, but that's going to take some time. But I decided to stop here. If we go back to 1997 and then do 1998 and 1999, and you add up those years for convert baptisms, then you get to 923,000. So it's not that 900,000 is unprecedented, but you have to go back a ways to get up that high. In fact, I think this is the time frame. It's got to be. Let me add those up. That only gets to 879 from 1998 to the year 2000. There aren't any other years that, that's how far back you have to go. For a comparable 3-year window, it would be 1997 to 1999. That's the last time that we've seen these type of numbers. So it's not Uncharted for this, but it's exciting. And if this trend continues, I think that we are going to break that number. I don't know what the biggest number is for a 3-year period. I'd have to fill out the rest of my chart. I know that like back in the 80s, there were a couple years as far as like raw church membership goes, like the raw number, the total number. I know there were a few years that were like really big. So I might have to go further and then check those out. But for now, so that's the story when it comes to the 900,000 that Elder Quentin Cook is talking about. And then let's scroll down. Okay, this part says more than 85,000 missionaries are serving worldwide. Okay, 85,000. This is the number that I'm really excited about. I'm about to explain why. As the number of missionaries continues to rise, the church announced the creation of 55 additional missions in October. In November, the First Presidency announced that young women can begin mission service at age 18 instead of 19. And actually I just realized that's a key bit of information with what I'm about to talk about, the lowering of the mission age for young women. Let's go back to my spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm keeping track of 4 things when it comes to missionaries. In column H, this is a column that we already had on this spreadsheet, the number of full-time teaching missionaries. So these are what you typically think of when you think of missionaries that are out, knocking on doors and going to appointments. So the number of full-time missionaries in column H. Column I is senior service missionaries. And at one point, it seemed like the number was kind of combined in some of these statistical reports where they were adding both the senior and the young service missionaries. So anyway, but when the church started to separate that number out, that's what I have column J for, when they separated out the young service missionaries. And then column K is the total number of missionaries. So we just read in the article more than 85,000 missionaries. Okay, well, what's a normal number? Are they talking about the total number of missionaries, including young service and senior service missionaries? No, because look at column K. In 2024, there were 109,000 total missionaries. If you go back to 2023, it was just a little under 100,000. In 2022, it was 92,000. And so, unless there was like a dramatic drop in missionaries, like senior missionaries, it wouldn't be 85,000 total. Because again, just go back in time. When you get back to 2018, the total number of missionaries was 103, and then 103 before that, and then 104, 105, 115. So the article doesn't spell out what missionaries they're talking about, but I'm certain by looking at the previous years, they're referring to full-time teaching missionaries when they say 85,000. And that's probably what most people reading this article would understand. And then they have a picture here of two sister missionaries. They're full-time teaching missionaries sitting on a couch teaching a family. So hopefully we're all in agreement that this number is 85,000, which matches with an earlier number this year in January, 83,000. Let's see. That came from Deseret News, Sarah Jane Weaver. But anyway, the most recent update, 85,000. So why is that exciting? It's exciting not only because it's a large number, it's larger than previous years when you go back a little ways, but if you go back to 2014, that's when we had our all-time high for full-time teaching missionaries, 85,147. And the reason why this was so high in that year is because that's when President Monson lowered the mission age. He actually did it back in 2012. You see it right here in column U. 2012, the lowering of the mission age, which led to a missionary surge over the next couple of years. And so in 2014, it peaked at 85,147. So what that means is that this article is saying that we have now gotten back up to that number. It doesn't give us an exact figure. It actually says more than 85,000. And so we may have already surpassed this number. This was a record-breaking number, and therefore the church is going into uncharted territory. And then on top of that, if we go back to the article, remember I highlighted this part that mentioned how the mission age was lowered for sisters, which undoubtedly is going to lead to a short-term surge in sister missionaries. And so, and the church continues to grow. And so over time, just because of the growth of the church, the number of missionaries is going to increase, of course. So of course, we're going to go into uncharted territory. But we finally caught back up to this number from 2014. From 2014, it naturally started to kind of equalize and the number went down. It seems like it bottomed out in 2018, President Nelson's first year as president of the church, at 65,000. But then the next year, it went up by about 2,000. But then immediately after that, you had the pandemic, which greatly impacted missionary work in 2020, 2021, probably the next couple of years too, more or less. But we've finally gotten back up to this number, according to what we just read, 85,000. So this is really pretty exciting. Now, if you want to, you can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. Before we move on, there were a couple other things I wanted to show you here. Look at the new children of record. Remember how in the couple addresses that we've had from President Oaks since he became president of the church, he has expressed his concern about birth rates. In fact, his first general conference after President Nelson's passing, when at that time he was acting as he was the president of the Quorum of the 12 during the Apostolic Interregnum, that talk addressed birth rates and how we should not be following the trends of the world. So if you look at new children of record, for 2024, it was 91,000, which is less than 2023. And then it's less than, you go back, okay, what is it? 91,000, less than 2019, less than 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14. And going back a ways, you have to go all the way back to 2002. Sorry, I didn't actually look at this until just now, like how far you'd have to go back. So 2024, you have to go all the way back. Well, no, sorry. 2022 looks like it was the worst in recent times. So, but 2024 is not too far off. So from 2022, you have to go all the way back to 2002 to see a lower number. So that's not encouraging. That's not a good thing. And President Oaks is concerned about that. So you can see that here. Column F, new children of record. And then with converts baptized, what's interesting, this is something that I already kind of paid attention to a long time ago, way before I started my channel. But when I looked at the Wikipedia article that has the total the total church membership, and it has it, year by year, I noticed that more or less, like every 3 years or so, the church increases by 1 million. So look at this. From 1986 to 1988, for those 3 years, the church was in the 6 millions. And then in 1989, it went to 7 million. It only stayed in the 7 millions for those 2 years, for 1989 and 1990. And then for the next 3 years, it was in the 8 millions. And then for the next 3 years, it was in the 9 millions. The next 3 years, the 10 millions. And then we kind of struggled a little bit at the turn of the millennium. We were in the 11 millions for 4 years. We were in the 12,000s for 3 years. 13 millions for 3 years. Sorry. 14 for 3. 15 for 4. 16. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We were in the 16 million range for 5 years, and that was because of the pandemic. And now, 17 million for 3 years, but we don't know the numbers yet for 2025. Maybe we hit the 18 million mark in 2025, but probably not, because that would have required about 500,000. And that would be a really big number for 1 year. So we're probably going to have been in the 17 millions at least for 4 years, is my guess. All right, to the right, I added the other metrics that they included in the statistical report. There's not too much I want to point out here except for this. In column S and T, for one statistical report, they mentioned the total number of countries and territories and possessions that the church had a presence in. And this was back in 1997. So they included it in just that one, but then they didn't afterwards. But in 1997, it was reported that the church was in 143 countries and 19 territories and possessions. So 143. And the most recent number I was able to find came from Elder Bednar in this article that was published on Newsroom. This is dated November 12th, 2025, so not too long ago. And he said that we're in over 150 nations. I don't know if he was including territories or not, so maybe the number hasn't really changed too much. I know that it has, because I've covered, I think, a couple new countries that we've gained access to for missionary work. But so anyway, this is the new spreadsheet. I'm going to try and fill out the rest of it. And I knew that this is something that was coming. I knew that eventually I was going to do this. It's really satisfying having done it now, but I need to go back as far as I can. And we'll see how that goes. All right, to finish this off, let's go to my spreadsheet called Quotes Second Coming. And I want to read this one from Elder Rasband. January 27th of this year. So this is after Elder Cook's talk. I don't want to read the whole thing. Let me just kind of read the red highlighted parts. During an April 1834 meeting in Kirtland, Ohio, the prophet Joseph Smith prophesied, "This church will fill North and South America. It will fill the world." Now, nearly 2 centuries later, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are seeing this happen. Later on, he goes through these false narratives about the church. In false narrative 2, the church is declining as interest in organized religion decreases. The last 12 months saw the largest number of convert baptisms in any 12-month period in this dispensation. Now that's interesting because it's similar to Elder Cook's 36 months, but it was sometime last year, I think it was around May or June, Elder Cook said that at that point, the previous 12-month period was a record-breaking 12-month period. But here, fast forward from May or June of 2025 to January of this year, and Elder Rasband is saying that record back last year has been broken. As of January, that number has become even more. They've gone even further. So I'm excited to see these 2025 numbers. I'm really anxious to see what those are going to look like. And then even more so 2026, because I think it's happening. President Nelson, I think it was back in 2018, I've read this quote a million times, but he said that we're just at the exponential phase of growth. I think that's what we're seeing. So we had the missionary surge with President Monson, and that helped things along. And then it tapered off, and then it was starting to climb back up in terms of missionaries. And then the church got hit with the COVID-19 pandemic. But now we're in the aftermath, and now I think we're starting to see this big recovery. I'm very, very excited about these next few years. Hopefully the second coming will happen, soon. But if not, I think missionary work is going to be very exciting, pre-second coming. And then, of course, when Christ does come, that's going to be the great day of missionary work, according to all the different quotes that we've read. Okay, so we have that from Elder Rasband. That's all that I wanted to read from there. Well, no, let's read this last part. He said, "I feel that we are only scratching the surface of what the Lord has in store for us as he prepares the world for his second coming. So buckle up, hold on tight, because I firmly believe that the best is yet to come." I totally agree with him. For what it's worth, I agree with him. And then there's this quote from Elder Cook. I have two. It's like the same. I think it's a devotional. Let's see. This is from Deseret News. Elder Quentin L. Cook offers guidance about facing unique spiritual challenges of AI age. And we'll read this one. Toward the end, I'm just going to read at the end. He says, "Technology has helped the church make recent, nearly exponential gains in missionary and temple work." So there's that key word, exponential, the same word that President Nelson used. And maybe it's mostly going to be because of technology. I don't know. I'm sure it's easier than ever before, wherever you live in the world, to find the gospel. More and more people have access to the internet. It's spreading. It's becoming more affordable and ubiquitous in places where maybe it wasn't before. I think like even in third world countries. There have been times where I've seen video on X of like some third world country where there's like a disaster happening or war or something. And you see the people there and they all have smartphones. I really think that there's never been an easier time to stumble across the church. Who knows the miracles that are happening right now? Maybe you've witnessed it. Maybe you've been one of these people. But I mean, I've been watching so many videos lately about AI. There's a lot of talk about it. Obviously, the church has been talking about it, and every day that goes by, it seems like it's advancing more and more. And it's actually a little bit scary, but I'm not going to go into that in this video. I feel like the world has never been in a more sci-fi moment with what could potentially happen. It seems like it's a revolutionary moment. It's something aside from things like, it feels like it is its own revolution. You have the Industrial Revolution. You have the information age, which I guess this could be part of it, but it feels like this is a separate age, a separate revolution. And who knows how that's going to affect the work of the church. But Elder Cook, again, he said, technology has helped the church make recent, nearly exponential gains in missionary and temple work. So, all right. Well, that's all that I have to share with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's look forward to this upcoming general conference and the rest of this year. I expect that there's going to be more big things that happen this year because it just isn't slowing down. And I'll talk to you guys later.